G'day ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Draw with Jazza. I'm Jazza and today we're going to be drawing Lara Croft from the Tomb Raider series. Now I will begin by saying that I've heard your feedback in terms of the Let's Draw videos. I've heard a lot of people say that they want me to slow them down a bit. So while the point of them is to be something of a speed paint, so it's a bit faster, I will keep it sped up, but I'm going to slow down, especially in the earlier parts, so that in the construction phase I can sort of explain what's going on a little clearer as it's happening. So as we begin, as we always do, with the construction lines. So with this figure in particular, it's a female, so I'm going to accentuate the torso and the hips. So I've got two guidelines to show that the angle of the torso and hips are slightly different, and then from there we kind of bring out the stick figure areas of the body. So we draw the arms and their simple poses and the legs with just basic lines to kind of represent the bones of the anatomy of the character. So again, with construction lines, it's all scribbly, it's all kind of to get the proportions, to get the basic shapes and everything flowing together well. I've got an itchy nose, so I keep scratching here, right here. It doesn't look like I'm picking it, does it? Anyways, so we're going to the legs, and then from there we start refining the figure a bit, adding meat to the bones, so kind of blocking out where the flesh would go on top of those basic stick figure lines we drew. And then adding the breasts to the torso. I say breasts because that's a nicer way of saying boobs or tits. So I tend to draw them as kind of water balloons, kind of held from the top to indicate a bit of weight. We'll go into that a bit later as I kind of go over the proportions once I've done a bit more refined line work. Anyways, next I'm going into the head and drawing the basic size and proportions, and then once we've got the figure mostly roughed out, which I've almost done here, I start to do a bit more refined construction line work. So while I'm doing the construction line work now, you can see that a lot of the detail is missing, in particular in the face and in the anatomy. So the next step that I go through is taking a slightly darker color, going over these areas and adding detail. Now this isn't the final line work, so I'm still quite rough, still quite sketchy, and willing to tweak and manipulate things and move things around, get the right proportions that I want until I find something I'm happy with. So through the process, I'm not totally happy with the size or proportions of the face or the body or anything like that, but that's the point of this. We go through and refine things and add a little bit more depth. So you can see that I'm using my very rough construction lines as something of a base, and now I'm kind of sketching over it with slightly more refined line work, kind of bringing the silhouette of the figure and the basic shapes and structure of the figure to a little bit more of a solid place. So, you know, as you can see, I've kind of tweaked the elbow there to bring the proportions in properly, starting to add things like the fingers, the details like the collarbone, and the lines of the breasts, and the abominable abdominal. Reshaping the face a little bit, having a slightly less pronounced jaw, and then starting to put in things like the hair. Now, something to keep in mind with the hair is to keep the top of the hair shape quite separate to the top of the skull, because you don't want it to be flat to the skull. You want it to look like it has body and a bit of motion. And I've added the ponytail and given it a bit of a motion as well, so it's kind of flicked out a little bit, like she's turned or is walking forwards. So now that I've got the basic proportions, I do a bit of a flip trick just to make sure things are in proportion. And now I'm just going to slow things down a bit to show you a little bit about the female proportions. So I'm using a red line here and I'm just showing that the collarbone and shoulders are in line with the bottom of the breast. So I fix that up there. Again, I do my flip tricks to make sure everything's in proportion, but as you can see that the lines of the pelvis are on a different angle to the lines of the shoulder and the torso. And that's quite a feminine characteristic. You notice that in catwalks we have that kind of slinky look. It's a very feminine feature. So you'll notice in a lot of comic books there, the position of the upper torso and lower pelvis are often kind of opposed. Anyway, so as you can see the breast there, I've kind of got that outline of that teardrop shape. I tend to do that. That's my own personal preference, just to kind of indicate where the weight is coming from. It hangs down there. So we go into the details of the face now. Things are a lot more sped up, but that's because we've really done the basic kind of structure of the figure anyway. But things that I keep in mind when I go through this, first and foremost, we want to accentuate femininity. So we want to make sure the lines are smooth, and as you can see, I've kind of gone into drawing a nude figure, but then I've slowly added the clothing on top of that. Reason being is because first and foremost, this character Lara Croft is a very well-known character for certain reasons, it being one of the early female sort of sexualized characters, and so while they're kind of stepped away from that in recent times because of, you know, feminism and all that stuff, at the end of the day, she's an attractive woman character, and we want to accentuate certain things, and so we begin with the female body and then we add the clothes on top because we want it to work with the anatomy. So going through now, adding the details, adding the clothes on top of the figure. So you'll notice I tend to draw the fingers and hands and details before I draw the glove on, and as you noticed with the upper torso, I drew the breasts and the upper torso and then removed some of the lines to make the clothing a little more realistic. It was going through adding the plait figure to the hair, and then once I've got all the line work done, I'm then ready to do the colouring. So the colouring process is one that I use quite often with cell shading, and that is where I basically pick two tones and I kind of go through and do the shadows first. So as you can see here with the hair, I've done the shadows first, and I'll do something different just for the hair, is I leave these two spots and I fill them in with gradients, and that adds a little bit of a shine. But as for the rest of the figure, same deal. So I pick the shadow skin color and paint that in, and then fill it in with the mid-tone skin color. And you can add highlights, but for the sake of simplicity, I just keep it with the darks and the mid-tones for now. So this is like quite a simple way of drawing. And if someone's learning, doing simple two-tone cell shading is a really good way to make yourself acquainted with how shape and shadow work together. So it's a learning process. As you can see, I kind of left two lines of light there and just filling in the last details on the guns, and that, ladies and gentlemen, is how I drew Lara Croft from Tomb Raider. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Let me know if that was a decent pace. I want to make sure that you guys can kind of keep up and enjoy it while not, you know, dragging on or things like that. So the tutorials will tend to be for more instructional things for specific things, and if you find something interesting in a Let's Draw that you want me to focus on, let me know and I can do a tutorial on it. Otherwise, the Let's Drawers are a bit of a quick run through of a figure start to finish every time. So I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure you leave your comments and like the video, and leave suggestions for the next Let's Draw video. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining me, and I will see you later.